A very good morning to all of you. I welcome you all on behalf of Vivekananda Institute of Professional Studies. Today we are privileged to have amongst us Honorable Member of Parliament Rajya Sabha, Shri Vivek Thakur ji. It is a matter of great pride and privilege for us to welcome our Honorable MP to the first of the public lecture series organized by Vivekananda Research Center. I request our Vice Chairman, Shri Suneet Vats, to offer a floral welcome to our esteemed guest. I welcome all on the dais and those off the dais to this public lecture today. A pioneer institute in the arena of education, Vivekananda Institute of Professional Studies, VIPS Technical Campus, has catered to the society for more than 2 decades now. Accredited A grade by NAC and recognized under 2F of UGC, VIPS is affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University. The institute is recognized by Bar Council of India and approved by AICTE and is an ISO 9001-2015 certified institution. Founded by the Strength India Educational Society at the turn of the millennium, VIPS is the initiation of building centers of preeminence that are comparable with the best institutes across the globe. After years of determination and commitment to impart quality education, we now comprise of various schools, namely Vivekananda School of Law and Legal Studies, Vivekananda School of Information Technology, Vivekananda School of Journalism and Mass Communication, Vivekananda School of Business Studies, Vivekananda School of Economics, Vivekananda School of English Studies, and Vivekananda College of Engineering. VIPS has been a platform for promoting professional education with the teachings and philosophy of Swami Vivekananda ji embedded deep in the roots of VIPS. Man-making, character building, and nation building have always been its unfailing mission. In the past 22 years of its existence, the institute has established its firm presence with stupendous growth in terms of students' enrollment, and we now have 7,000 plus students. The institute has carved its unique position in the university, and the students of this institute have excelled in the realms of law, industry, media, and academia, bringing in university gold medals year after year. VIPS adheres to value-based education and strives to revive, relive, and restore the traditional values while anchoring today's youth to our cultural ethos. It is a monumental task to train young brains and make them perfect professionals, considerate citizens and humble human beings, but VIPS has always delivered this promise it makes to our society and to the world at large. The past 22 years have seen VIPS grow and take wings. What started more than 2 decades back was just an idea, a seed. Today, this institution is one of its kind. It is there to lead. VIPS has the privilege to host eminent personalities and luminaries to the institute and has organized various leadership lecture series. The list of dignitaries who have graced the institute with their benevolent presence is endless, and with every passing year, we are sure it will be consolidated, strengthened, and further enriched. Vivekananda Research Center is organizing its first public lecture series, and today is the first lecture from this series. As I welcome you, sir, to the portals of this great institution, we are indebted to you, for today you will add yet another page to its illustrious story. Research is an integral part of any academic institution, and Vivekananda Research Center, which is organizing this lecture series, always encourages, promotes, promulgates, and caters to the research acumen of students and faculty members here. To give you a sneak peek into VRC, I now invite the Dean of Vivekananda Research Center, Dr. Pavan Vig. Sir, please.
Good morning, friends, respected guests, Vice Chairman, sir, Deans, faculty members, chairpersons, and my dear students. Research entails the strategic investigation of a problem to create something new and add to the existing repository of information. Fundamental of the concept of research is systematic and creative exploration of facts and ideas. Swami Vivekananda's words that we must take up one idea, make that one idea your life, perhaps best sum up the activity of indicating the research entails. The Vivekananda Research Center, VRC, was founded under the aegis of Professor Siddharth Mishra, Honorable Chairperson, and Professor VJMC VIPS. The objective of VRC is ideologically aligned with the philosophy of Swami Vivekananda, and education is manifestation of perfections already in man. As such, the VRC was developed to enable students enrich and explore their investigation and academic research. The Vivekananda Research Center also intrinsically seeks to promote and to encourage the aspiring students and faculty members to carry out research in the field of law, management, IT, communication, etc., by providing necessary facility and infrastructure required for students' activities. It further aims to create zeal among the students towards research and motivation and inspire them to work closely with the real-time needs that eventually will result in new or improved products, process, academic systems, or educational and other services that can broaden the information base. The VRC further seeks to present itself as an innovation-friendly space for critical intellectual deliberation. The various activities of the VRC will be aimed at new multidisciplinary research with existing quota of knowledge and betterment of VIPS as an institution and society at large. The VRC would initiate various activities that would ensure successful implementation, follow-up, progress, and monitoring of ongoing projects, further keeping in mind that the main principle of interest of VRC is research and related activities. The VRC will assist faculty and students in matter related to collaborative research with other agencies also. As a focal point to stimulate research and synonyms activities, the VRC will organize and coordinate research and development activities among respective departments, faculty members, and students of VIPS. Finally, to enable the dissemination of research and to encourage academicians, the VRC will bring out a journal to publish research work. The various activities under VRC are: number one is Vivekananda Journal of Research. It is a biannual peer-reviewed research journal and published with enriched papers from the various disciplines. It is a multidisciplinary journal. The journal aims to provide an enriched collection of research papers, case studies, articles, book chapters, and book reviews also. The articles published express the heterogeneous and the permeable boundaries of critical minds across space. Second activity that we are going under VRC are minor research projects, where in line with the central philosophy of VRC to promote academic research and generate a conducive atmosphere of research within the institute, the minor research projects schemes was developed. Third, the social media activity. Our social media executive do analysis of the post and see the trends of the organic development of the content across the social media. The trends are studied and used as a primary data for the future content creation. Third, we are also in the process of Vivekananda Compendium, where we concise all the lectures developed by Swami Vivekananda ji and written by the faculty members and those who are interested. And this is one more activity that we are including this year, that is public lecture series. And once again, I welcome sir to deliver the first lecture on this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As we all know, today we have assembled here for the first in the series of the public lectures organized by VRC, and the topic is Naya Bharat, New Politics. We are all part of this new India, especially the young, energetic force of students sitting here. A nation at 75, as we are all celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Is it young? Is it new? Or is it the change and development that we are referring to? Is it the dream, the vision of a new thriving nation, or is it a paradigm shift? I would now invite Mr. Suneet Vats, Vice Chairman, VIPS TC, to introduce the topic of today's lecture. I welcome you, sir, for the curtain raiser to today's lecture.
Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Thank you, Vivek ji, for sparing your time. Vivek ji and I have a very common bond, which is modern school. He also passed out from modern, so that's a common bond. Another common bond between Vivek ji and me is that my father and his father were very close friends, and they have worked together when they were, part of Dr. Cell in the ICC. So both those regards, I think, Vivek ji, it's a pleasure for me to meet you today through Siddharth Mishra sir. He has been talking very high of you, and the kind of topic that we have chosen today for this public discourse, underlines the importance of the guest today, because though he's from Rajya Sabha, but then, he's known for his development work in his constituency and the larger cause of Bihar as a, state. He has carried out many projects which he'll be able to, elaborate much on, because I would like to, introduce the subject today first and leave it to him to, further expand that on. It's a vast topic, I must say, and doing justice within 10 minutes is, I think it's criminal on, somebody from VRC, I would say, Dr. Pavan sir. It's criminal on my, of you for me to introduce this subject in the shortest possible manner. I have been kind of diving deep into the subject and dwelling deep into what Naya Bharat would mean and the new politics would mean for India. If we look at the geopolitical situation, I am not a strategist, but then whatever I have understood through various articles, research papers that I've read through in the past few days, it's a huge, task before us as a nation to emerge as, and sloganism will not do, because, there are nations like China that we are competing with, howsoever, evil they may be in whatever they did during COVID, but then, their economic might that they possess today is something that is unmatched, and it is almost challenging, the old order that was, kind of controlled by US and its allies. It is kind of reshaping, the entire geopolitical scenario. When I talk of China, I talk of BRI, which is, the Belt and Road Initiative, where $2 trillion US dollars are being invested by China. It is kind of, taking on a sovereign, people, Sri Lanka is an example where their sovereignty has been just taken over by China, because those soft loans were, kind of masked, and it's called mask diplomacy, because their intentions of, funding these countries is to expand their, territorial rights, which India as a nation, as we say that Hindustan, and Gandhiji in his, Hind Swaraj went on to say, people of, who have a political science background would know what Hind Swaraj is all about. It's a beautiful paper, book which there are 20 chapters into it. It is in a dialect form, where Gandhiji has kind of, thrown out burning issues to, his contemporaries, wanting to understand what the new India would be. And that new India that he was trying to paint was more foundational in terms of what he wanted to do. And visualization of India was more of self-control, and self-control through, controlling of individual own nature. So he never, kind of said that we get lost into, the materialism that was visible that time. So one has to be, grounded in its values, its culture, its, ethnicity, because soft power, as Joseph Nye, a Harvard professor in 1980 said, that soft power is something that one would have to exercise, on a civil society. A soft power will play a role of, where you kind of get the other person to do what you want them to do for you, using soft powers like language, culture, your influence in movies. Hollywood had greater, it's extending its influence in movies. Political ambitions, because it talks about politics also, the new leaders, I was reading an article where, not as a criticism to any government, but then reading an article where, our minister went on to announce that India would, for the larger part of its, would be exporting wheat grains. But it did not happen, and India had to take a U-turn because we still follow a system of, accountancy which is based on Todermal's, accounting, procedure. And that faulty estimates kind of led into, us to retract a bigger statement, and the help that was to go out as a soft, gesture was kind of recalled. So now it raises questions on what kind of political, leadership do we look at? And is leadership all about that you may have a good machine? I don't know. How many of you have seen the Top Gun Part 2? How many? Have you seen Top Gun Part 2? Yes. There are two very important, observations there. One is it's not the machine, the person who is handling that machine who is important. So it's not the nation that, possibly, yes, nation has its own advantages, but it's the leadership that counts. That's one part to the story. Second is that one has to walk the talk. It cannot be mere sloganism. We may say make in India, we may say anything, but do we have those, competencies and, capacity to build India to the scale that where China stands today? China, in terms of its, size, the GDP, though people, some of them say that GDP is not the right way of, measuring somebody's, economy. But then given the size, they are close to 16 trillion US dollars. India is just around $3 trillion. So how are we going to compete? It's a big challenge. Whatever is happening in Ukraine, through Russia, the kind of crisis that it is creating. A few days back, there was a Quad, meeting which was happened. I don't know how many of you students would possibly, know about Quad. Quad is basically a quadrilateral relationship between 4 countries: Australia, Japan, India, and your US. Fine, and why is it important? Because with China expanding, its ambition to Pacific Ocean, which is full of natural resources. It is not something which is, it has pure economics behind it. There's nothing which is, territorial rights or something to do with it, because as per the World Trade and the UN, territorial, demarcation that they do, 12 nautical miles from your territorial waters is what international, your own country boundaries are. They have extended it to 200, nautical miles, where, the entire Southeast Asian region becomes a, area of conflict. So we need, a leadership which will kind of is not only aware of what the global developments are, but would need a new understanding in terms of how they can leverage, different soft powers that they enjoy, may it be diplomatic, missions that are being sent out, may it be religion, because religion in the past and culture, tourism for that matter, student, traveling abroad, these are all soft powers that people have enjoyed over a period of time. So we need to think of New India in those terms, not just think in terms of, its religious entities. It doesn't matter anymore, because we will soon be finding ourselves in a deeper, bigger problem because of the things that are happening today here. We are kind of living up with some of these realities that exist outside this, part of our country. But then, do we really have a solution? And as a member of parliament, I would request Vivek ji to kindly expand on these issues, because these are very burning issues, and if we really want New India to emerge as a superpower, as we visualize, fine, and celebrating Amrit Mahotsav to any other celebration that is going to matter, do we have that kind of credentials with us? Do we have that kind of, industrial might with us? Because even in soft powers, as I want to expand that topic, the amount of billionaires that have started to emerge in the Forbes list is another, landscape which is being, kind of developed. China did it because it deliberately sponsored, industry. We too started with Nehru started with, these kind of industries to come up, but then they were not competing on a world stage. China, on the other hand, is all state-owned, industry, and is wanting to, make those industries compete at a world scale. So that's the difference between the approach, that kind of two nations picked up. We had a beautiful fundamental, foundation laid out. We are capitalizing on it. We are developing on it much further. But then it requires a real visionary to understand. And the visionaries would not come just in terms of the Prime Minister, or it has to be the entire parliament, the entire legislative framework, because a lot of rules have to change. And if you want to change the rules of the game, we have to change legislation in a big way and be a facilitator to things that we are going to do. Is my time? Or can I go on? And see, that again, as I said, I'm sorry, it kind of broke my thought process completely. Now the thing is that if these are the challenges that we visualize as a nation, the kind of geopolitical pressures, soft power is going to be the game changer in times to come, at least for a civil society, because the other alternative which is available is the hard force that normally, and military might is normally seen now more as a deterrent, not as an offensive strategy. It is seen more as a deterrent to protect your sovereignty, to protect your trade lines, to protect everything that comes in terms of protecting your the softer side of a country. I think I have many papers. I can go on reading them, but then time is of essence. Vivekji would possibly have a lot more to add on to this. With those words, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. And I, on behalf of Chairman Sir, the entire board, faculty members, our principal is here, our dean is here, there are other deans sitting here, IT, Subha Rao Sir, everybody, I would like to thank Vivek Sir for being here. And we'd like to look forward to listening to your part, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your opening remarks and for the wonderful introduction to the topic in the backdrop of the global market and development. When we talk of India, I would like to quote a few lines from Sundar Bharat by Sridhar Pathak. He Vandaniya Bharat, Abhinandaniya Bharat, He Nyaya Bandhu Nirbhay, Nibandaniya Bharat. Mama Prema Pani Pallav, Avlambaniya Bharat, Mera Mamatva Sara, Tujhme Sama Raha Hai, Bharat Hamara Kaisa Sundar Suha Raha Hai. A nation at 75, we are new. In the lifespan of nations, India is still young. Sumitra Nandan Pant के शब्दों में फूलों के वानों का रच नव कुस्मित तोरण अभिनंदन करता नव भारत का नव यौवन उर के चिर तारुण्य पांति में युवक युवती युवकगण. This is the new era, एक नया अध्याय. बहुत अच्छा है आज का दिन, इतिहास ने पलटा खाया है. नया अध्याय जुड़ गया है, नई सदी, नई उमंग, नए सपने. Now let me take the honors to introduce our esteemed guest of the day. Shri Vivek Thakur ji has both theoretical and practical experience of politics. He is a graduate in political science from Kirorimal College, Delhi University, Delhi. He holds an LLB degree from Magad University, Patna, and has an EMIT degree from the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, IIFT, New Delhi. Sir has been into active politics for a long time. He was elected as the member of Bihar Legislative Council in 2013-2014, and in April 2020, he was elected to Rajya Sabha. He has been a member for many prestigious committees. From July 2020 onwards, he has been a member in the Committee on Labour, Textiles and Skill Development. From November 2020 onwards, he is member consultative committee for the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. September 2021 onwards, member at the Sansad, that is Court of Vishwa Bharati. October 2021 onwards, member of Library Committee. November 2021 onwards, member Committee on Subordinate Legislation. And January 2022 onwards, member Joint Committee on Salaries and Allowances of Members of Parliament. Sir has participated in various seminars on different socio-political and commerce-related issues. Apart from his political career, if we reflect upon his persona, he is a sports enthusiast with a special interest in cricket. He is a connoisseur of music, listening to music of all types, and an avid reader, reading books, both fiction and non-fiction. Shri Vivek Thakur is not just widely read, but has gained a lot of experience, learnings, and insights from his visits to many countries. He has visited Madagascar in 1994-95 as a member of APEDA, Ministry of Commerce, Government of India, delegation to study post-harvest technology of fresh lychees for its application in India to boost exports of Indian produce. Shri Thakur has attended the US Agricultural Congress meet at San Diego, California, supported by US aid for the Indian delegates in 1995. He has visited Mauritius, Germany, UK, Thailand, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, UAE, Kuwait, Italy, France, and Spain. I now request our Vice Chairman, Shri Suneet Vats, and Chairperson, Vivekananda School of Journalism and Mass Communication, and Vivekananda School of Information Technology, Professor Siddharth Mishra, to felicitate our honorable guest, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, Shri Vivek Thakur ji. Thank you. Sankalp se Siddhi, Pledge for a New India, was taken 5 years back. The poem by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi invigorates and energizes all Indians. लाल किले के प्राचीर पर प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने पढ़ी थी ये कविता. I'll just like to quote. अपने मन में एक लक्ष्य लिए, मंजिल अपनी प्रत्यक्ष लिए, हम तोड़ रहे हैं जंजीरें, हम बदल रहे हैं तस्वीरें. हे नवयुग, ये नव भारत है, खुद लिखेंगे अपनी तकदीरें. हम निकल पड़े हैं प्रण करके, अपना तन मन अर्पण करके. जिद है एक सूर्य उगाना है, अंबर से ऊंचा जाना है, एक भारत नया बनाना है, एक भारत नया बनाना है. स्फूर्ति के ये का है शायद ये एक नया स्रोत. And with this new energy, new strength, new fire, new determination, we are sure a new India is already emerging, and today we are fortunate enough to hear it from our esteemed guest. Put your hands together for the public lecture, Naya Bharat, New Politics by Shri Vivek Thakur, Honorable Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this prestigious institute, the existence of which I always knew, but this is the first visit to this institute that I'm experiencing, because I've seen, I'm witness, I would say, not seen, I'm witness to the birth of this institute in a very different way. When late Mr. Arun Jaitley was contesting for this institute's land-related issues in the courts of Delhi, he has been my mentor. So I remember those were the times that he used to say that to देखना ये इंस्टीट्यूट एक बहुत ही बढ़िया इंस्टीट्यूट बनेगा. And this is what we are living today. At the outset, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Dr. S.C. Vats ji, founder of the Vivekananda Institute of Professional Studies, Mr. Suneet Vats, Vice Chairman, Mr. Pawan Beg, Dean VIPS, Professor Siddharth Mishra for inviting me to deliver a public lecture on a sea-like subject. Very rightly, Mr. Vats said, Naya India, New Politics. Where to end is the most difficult thing. One can just go on and on and on. It's indeed an honor to be a part of this event. And I was very happy to learn that Dr. Vats founded this institute way back in 1997. And inspired by most revered Swami Jitatmanandji, an eminent educationist, a management expert, a distinguished author on modern physics, Vedanta, and Indian ethos in management. And he was also the editor of Prabudh Bharat, Awaken India. It was a journal that was started by Swami Vivekananda. Given its stellar contribution to the field of education, I feel the institute will go a long way in not only imparting professional management studies to the students, it will also help in promoting and propagating value education by devising and encouraging a course curriculum on Vedic education. The Vedas are the foundations of Hindu tradition and culture. And the colossal role that the Vedas have played in transforming the lives and the value system of the people of our country, we may contest it today, but historically speaking, it's been unequivocally recognized by the scholars. And we all realize in our day-to-day lives that education not only fulfills the material needs of people, but it also enables man's conscience to understand, to realize, to get inspired, and to follow the ideals of its moral aspect. Vedas also go a long way in helping and supporting sustainability, hence enhancing the quality of life of mankind. For people to understand Vedas, it needs to be learned in their own language. And the path to the welfare of all in the country is rooted in the Vedas for more than thousands of years. We may have heard even today that young students who are preparing for various competitions, some of them are advised that you must learn Vedic mathematics. Do you know what is the advantage of Vedic mathematics? If an engineering student is preparing for an engineering entrance or a medical student, it shortens the whole process of arriving at the conclusive answer. Through a normal teaching, if you take 20 steps to arrive at your answer, you might reach through Vedic mathematics in the 7th step itself. So you have to, and because modern day exams are objective type of exams, there's always a race against time. So you have to understand the relevance and importance. Hardly any one of us in this auditorium may have thought of ever reading Vedas. Hardly. Some may have. I don't know of the exceptions. But any person who is an avid reader, you can go in and buy the concise traditional books of the Vedas, the Upanishads. You must learn. These are treasures of India. You should know at least. So Vedic education has more than what our mind can see through. It teaches us to learn the values of assiduously working for achieving one's dreams and aspirations, and an immeasurable need for patience and determination. A very difficult thing. To be determined also and to be patient also. Especially for the Naya India youths. But that is where the thin line is between a success and a disaster. Again, the relevance of Vedas. So Vedic education goes much beyond just a stereotype of an educational system. It's a way of living, a way of learning new things with a positive mind. It focuses on the all-round personality development, including some speaker talked about it, I think. Character formation, performance of civic and social duties, competence that deals with concerns of how well one is able to do something, preservation, spread of culture. Why I talked so elaborately about Vedas? Because this is what exactly our new education policy, which has just been introduced, intends to inculcate amongst the behavioral pattern and course designs, which transcends a rigid and conventional school educational curriculum. In coming times, you can take an engineering exam in Kannada, your regional language. You can study medical in Tamil. We would wonder why and how is it possible, but that is what NEP is all about. Your combination of subjects could be mathematics and Hindi. You're very passionate about Hindi, so don't leave it. You're good at maths, do maths. Do what you are good at, do what you are passionate about, and that is new education policy. Friends, standing on the high pedestal of a knowledge-rich religion and glorious cultural saga that we have, we are stepping into a new era, a new India, a resurgent India, a young India. Aplomb with a treasure trove of willpower and confidence to take our country to a height of success in all spheres, a Param Vaibhavshali Bharat. And you are the backbone of such a golden era that is unfolding gradually. It is the youth of India. But I think it's important to discuss what is the change. What is the change? More than the material side of it, I think it's important to understand the mindset. There's an attitudinal shift, a mindset change. A more confident Indian and a nation, resulting in unfurling of the prowess once again that we Indians have had, as has been written in our glorious history. And we are ready to rewrite the future in the modern contemporary time as a leader. This is the resurgent India. We couldn't have imagined till 5 years, 10 years back, that come a global crisis like Corona, America also readies its vaccine. At the same time, India also readies its own vaccine. And today, there was a lot of chaos when the vaccine came, within also and outside also. The government of the day was regularly being harassed within the country. Outside, as far as the US is concerned, no permission is granted till today for no reason. But assertively, I can say our vaccine, Covaxin, is more effective than Pfizer. Israel has finished their 4th stage of vaccination through Pfizer. We have seen 2 waves after our 2 vaccinations. China's vaccine collapsed. It was nothing but water. Sumit ji was definitely talking about China's success story. Yes, there's no doubt about it. They started early. And we as a nation lost critical 2 decades. Critical 2 decades we lost. And the government of the day is trying to compensate for that loss. May seem to be in a hurry, but there's a Tina factor, there's no alternative. Once Graham Greene, if you may have heard of him, wrote that time, money, energy passes with horrifying speed. So where were we and why? See, prior to 2014, due to series of unfortunate events that the nation lived for decades, our state of mind had reached a stage that expectation from the government of the day, pan-India, I would say, the socio-economic, political, the administrative scenario, had reached such a low point that everyone's standard line of thinking had become, इस देश का कुछ भी नहीं हो सकता. देखो हुआ तो हुआ, नहीं तो छोड़ो, क्या कर सकते. This was the attitude. We were a depressed nation, reconciled nation. The elderly had a similar line of thinking. The youth also had a similar line of thinking. it was unfathomable for a state of Uttar Pradesh to aim for a $1 trillion economy, which they are working upon. Unfathomable. Very rightly, Sumitji said, we are a 3 trillion economy. We aimed for a 5 trillion economy, but came Corona, impacted us. But today I was reading the editorial page of Times of India. There was a lot of hue and cry, mockery about when we set the target of $5 trillion Indian economy. Why is it not possible? The Prime Minister was only on this mode. Why is it not possible? Why can't we do it? That's the attitude of the government of the day. And today's article, what's his name? The former RBI governor, Raghuram Rajan has written an edit page, all of you can see that in today's Times of India, that India should aim for a $10 trillion economy. And every state should aim for a $1 trillion economy. There should be a race among states, and that would boost the whole thing. तो गाली हमें पड़ रही थी 5 पे, और those who thought that when Raghuram Rajan was removed, that the government has victimized and taken a biased position, they were the ones who were criticizing on various issues of economics. And the same Raghuram Rajan is today talking about that India should aspire for a $10 trillion economy. Now, after the arrival of Prime Minister Modi in 2014 at the helm of affairs, see, you and I are not common people. You have to go and see the India, it doesn't stay in Delhi. The teeming millions which Gandhi used to refer is not here. It's in the farms. वो खेत में है. You have to go there to understand what they have to say, what change has come about. You and I had a car prior also. You have a car today also. What they say, कि जो कभी नहीं हुआ वो मोदी जी के शासन काल में हुआ. And therefore that famous line, मोदी है तो मुमकिन है. So I'll elaborate on this, why this slogan, because we can discuss. I believe there's a change in the whole way of doing politics and governance, and why this emphasis on good governance. It's not just being preached, he rightly said, but practiced for a work culture to evolve. From policy paralysis to we shall do it, achieve it, it's done and doable. This is the attitudinal shift of India. The whole confidence level of the youth of India has reached such a point in this 8 year of journey that it was time to give the call for an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Everybody thought, again a jargon. Modi ji is very good at it. But you have to understand the rationale behind all these things. See, that is to, why Atmanirbhar Bharat? What is Atmanirbhar? It's to institutionalize the whole indigenous effort that shall help all domains of economy and society to live with dignity, in happiness, confidently, without any worry about the future. And we are walking steadfastly on this path. There is a solution to many problems of the nation in it, sizably related to economy or global dependence for various things. Just a small trigger has happened in 2 nations, and look at the oil prices. We don't have oil. A critical example of this Atmanirbhar Bharat pursuance is that the defense sector, wherein a policy decision has been taken to cut down imports by providing 50% of the things within the country, we are gradually cutting down our import bill hugely. So not only the horizon to work was chosen, but to provide fillip and bring about a change in this government, I would say, from farm to space. When I say farm, I mean agriculture. I mean farmer. All political parties post-independence have talked about Kisan, Kisan, Kisan. Shastri ji gave that famous nara also, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. But nobody thought of that Kisan. What are his needs? What do they want? Small things have been addressed, which are making a drastic change in the whole complexion. The farmers are getting 6,000 rupees every year in 3 installments. It would mean nothing even to the student community here. They might just blow it one evening in a birthday party. So once I was traveling in a Naxal belt in Bihar, so a farmer's son, an ordinary farmer's son was with me. So I asked him, Mr. Rahul Gandhi had made again a mockery of that 6,000. This was after the 14 election, when this whole scheme of Kisan Samman Nidhi was announced. He said that if my government comes, I'll give 72,000 rupees. What is this 6,000? But the first installment had come, second installment had come, and country was entering into 2019 polls. I asked him, कि क्या होगा 6,000 rupees? The guy got angry over me. A very ordinary farmer, small petty farmer's son. He said, आप क्या बात कर रहे हैं? क्योंकि ये एक पैसा है जो पिताजी कभी जानकारी नहीं देते. That is the farmer. Son is saying about his. और इस जब खेती खराब होती है तो एक धोती पे आफत आ जाता है. And farming is a web. ये खेती खराब हो गई इस साल, मार पड़ गया. चाह के भी, with losses, रो के भी, again they start preparing for the next cycle, next year. और उसी 6,000 से फर्टिलाइजर वाले को 1,000 का एडवांस दे दिया, सीड वाले को कहीं 500 दे दिया, ऐसे करते करते they kind of get the whole thing into motion. 60,000 का सामान 6,000 का बयाना देके what we call थोड़ा थोड़ा दे के वो शुरू कर देती है फिर अगले साल की तैयारी. This is the relevance. And insurance for them, unfathomable. Accidental insurance for a laborer by paying just 12 rupees a month, unfathomable. A pension for them, Atal Bima Yojana, 2 rupees you have to deposit. So, a lot of focus is on good governance. We all know what good governance is. We may not know, but we all have heard about what good governance is generally referred about. So, I would like to very simply put what good governance is all about. In simple terms, it's the process of measuring how public institutions conduct themselves vis-a-vis public affairs, manage public resources, and guarantee the realization of human rights in a manner essentially free of simple abuse or abusive implementation, corruption-free, having due regard for the rule of law is what good governance is all about. So what all could be the component of good governance? Transparency and consensus, accountability, equitable and inclusive, following the rule of law, and the government of the day, the governance ought to be such that it has to be responsive as well. So these are the components of good governance. And the government of India is committed to strengthening good governance that is pro-people, guided by citizen-first approach, and the welfare of the citizen is the prime purpose. One aspect of governance relates to safeguarding legal rights of all citizens. An equally important aspect is concerned with equitable access to public services and the benefits of economic growth to all. And in that direction, this government relies hugely on technology, hugely. And therefore, e-governance has come into being for its delivery of all social welfare measures. There's a lot of focus on good governance, an attentive focus. In fact, Government of India celebrated Good Governance Week last year in December as a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations. And the theme of the Good Governance Week was Prashasan Gaon Ki Or, under which a campaign for redressal of public grievance, improving service delivery, was held in all districts, states and UTs. So far it's been done twice. I'll tell you how this worked. Because I, as a politician, my whole party was on ground working in coordination with this set of officers in remotest areas. What was it? There are hundreds of schemes that Government of India has. You may have seen that in the last 2.5 years, 80 crore population has got free ration every month. The gas has been distributed like people might be running away, but the gas is chasing them. That's how it's been distributed now. There's nothing privileged about having a gas connection. Jan Dhan account, we all have heard. It's a zero balance account. Account opening was an exercise in those days. Now, for plethora of schemes that exist, Government of India decided that all those, lot of people would be wishing to undertake the UPSC exams. The civil services has various services within it. IAS is one of them, IF is another, IPS is another one. In IRS, one is income tax, the other one is customs and excise. You have defense audits and accounts, you have audits and accounts. It's a huge number, railways, all of that. Now, all officers from these services were pulled in, a team was created, and they were all allotted various districts, various administrative places, units, and they had camped for a week, 7 days. Suppose they have to go and stay in a village in Meerut, and half of the team would look after the overall district implementation of Meerut, and one would go to, and half the team will be in one village looking after that. So there is a district review going on by that team, and it's already identified which place is the worst as far as the delivery has been. And they camp there, and they sit with the people. All bankers are there, everybody is there, all accounts are opened. Those who are supposed to get gas, they are not getting it because of some, bureaucratic hiccup. That's resolved there. So this is how that whole Good Governance Week was celebrated. And it's been done twice. It made a huge impact. And PM's message for that week was that in the Amrit period of independence, we are marching ahead rapidly to create a transparent system, efficient process, and smooth governance to make development all round and all inclusive. See, actually, the idea of good governance, as Sumitji referred about the wish that Gandhiji had and that he wrote in his book, is much older than even Gandhiji existed. It's primitive, I would say. Because I'll just elaborate upon it. The whole concept of a Kautilian state that we find if you go through Arth Shastra, the famous book of Chanakya, then you would realize how old it is. Although in modern times they say it's a Western political administrative philosophy. Well, it is not so. See, Kautilian state, there was a concept of a Kautilian state in those days. What did it ensure? It ensured freedom, happiness, prosperity, full-fledged development of human personality. It emphasized, that time there was a king-like system, a governing group, not a cabinet or a prime minister or kind of a thing. So it emphasized that the king should surrender his individuality in the interest of his duties. The king is expected to behave in the most righteous manner. It further says, in the happiness of his subject lies his happiness. In their welfare, his welfare. Whatever pleases himself, he shall not consider as good. But whatever makes his subjects happy, he shall consider good. So at the same time, now coming back to today's time, yes, there is a feeling of nation, nationalism that has grown amongst us. But nation and nationalism has grown amongst us not because if we would like to view it, it's a rise of Hindutva or something of that sort. No, not at all. I beg to disagree and differ totally. But that's how in the TVs we see a common narrative coming every day in the evening. It is not so. See, it is because of the confidence that's evolved within us as Indians in India or abroad. The diaspora thing that has come up. Who would address an Indian population in Oman, Yemen? Who would evacuate an Indian in crisis in Yemen? In Germany, who would address the Indian diaspora? In Prague, who would address the Indian diaspora? The concept did not exist. Virtually, they were working for their bread like that what Gandhi used to call the teeming millions, not a proud Indian. Dere dere rehte the. When I visited Madagascar, that was in 94, 95, we had gone there to study the post-harvest technology of the fresh lychees. Actually, in India, since 1960s, effort was on that how could we preserve it, the fresh fruit, using technology and send it to the world market. Because we get a lot of it and it falls under the exotic category of fruits. The prices are good. So we had gone there to study the technology. Because it's a God-blessed country, Madagascar. Total administrative chaos, typical of Africa. It has been a French colony. Like, you can't imagine that there's one hill of pineapples. The next hill is of lychees. Next to it is a beautiful sea. The third one is a papaya hill. All raw, God said. But what did I experience? The Indian embassy was there. We were a Government of India delegation of Ministry of Exports. There was a one gentleman from Godrej. There was a one gentleman from Ministry of Commerce, a joint secretary. He was a very brilliant man. He's the man who got Pepsi into India, Mr. Gokul Patnaik. There were a couple of more officers and 2-3 more representatives from the industrial bodies. Now, one Indian, Gujarati Indian, invited us for dinner at his residence. We went there. They were staying there for hundreds of years. After dinner, when we were coming in the night, there were barricades. There were soldiers of a rebel group who stopped us. Now, you look at the look. They had machine guns like we may have seen Rambo. Big machine guns. The cartridge didn't have a place to keep, so it was wrapped. And the gentleman who was driving the local family, they were there for trade, so, but 100 years, yes. And he forgot his purse at home, because we were there at his home. वो हम लोग को ड्रॉप करने आया. There was one man from the embassy also. So there were 2-3 vehicles, so they stopped. This guy, I was in this guy's car. And there was one officer from here in Delhi. He was so nervous that I had to hold his hand all throughout. And they came, they didn't knock at the door with their hands. With the tip of that machine gun, they did tuck, 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 tuck. और ये अपने जो पदाधिकारी थे यहाँ भारत सरकार के, बोले कि यार खोल दे यार, कहीं चला दिया, कुछ हो गया. And this gentleman was sweating. He was a resident there, NRI. He said, क्या आप लोग के पास कुछ डॉलर है क्या? मैं पर्स घर भूल गया. बोला है? कितने चाहिए? बोला 10-20 निकाल दो, कुछ निकाल दो. I gave him $10-20. शीशा उतारा, दिया $10, शीशा ऊपर किया, बैरिकेड हटा, गाड़ी चली. इंडिया तो बेकार बदनाम है. This is 94-95. And that country in China did not have any presence then. Now, Madagascar is totally in Chinese control. Now, what I'm trying to say is, it would not be possible today if you say that you're from India. That's the whole scenario that has changed world over as far as nation and nationalism is concerned. See, what's happened in these 8 years has enhanced the prestige of every Indian world over. It's a confident India, be it here or outside. And there are various factors to it. All that's happened in the last 8 years of regime. Balakot airstrikes, the retaliatory action of the armed forces by doing surgical strikes in Pakistan and wiping terror camps existing then, there. It was unfathomable. We couldn't have imagined. We saw what happened in Bombay. We stayed home. Like typical Indian who was driving that vehicle in Madagascar. That's how India was, in India. No better. We saw the Ladakh standoff and the assertive India's retaliation towards China by the armed forces positioning, sanctions against China, the formation of Quad. I'm just telling you the factors. A successful pandemic management of 130 crore populous country. The vaccine development, we didn't bother about these countries. And when our students were not getting certificates to enter their countries, assertive India said that we are going to put all of you in quarantine the moment you touch down at Delhi. All European countries within 3 days started giving permission to all our students that, yeah, we accept your co-vaccine, we accept all your vaccines. It was not possible earlier. This is the Naya Bharat. Because we didn't just develop vaccine for ourselves. We took the human approach as well. There are a lot of poor nations. Pfizer was out to do landlordism world over. And we earned money also. And we provided vaccines to hundreds of poor countries. And our vaccines have turned out to be one of the best in the world. Our foreign policy has undergone a sea change, totally. It's very clear. My India first, nation first. That will determine my foreign policy. Not because this is Russia, this is America, so I have to bow. No, nothing. We've seen that happening very recently. It was Operation Ganga. All of you would know 22 to 24,000 students were evacuated from Ukraine. No country in the world was ever able to do this. Since this government came, the evacuation of Indians started big time wherever in crisis. Operation Ganga is not an ordinary thing. You might see a movie coming up in times to come. This war has not stopped in last 3-4 months.
It stopped only one day, 4 hours for India. The Prime Minister spoke to Putin. Our children were stuck up in such a situation in Mariupol that firing was on, and there were two rebel Ukrainian groups. You know that Ukraine also has a rebel team. And our diplomats are not supposed to go in the war zone. All our ministers were stationed at the outlets with everything, vehicles, everything, buses, food, everything arranged. Jyotiraditya Scindia was in Romania. Kiran Rijiju was at one place. General VK Singh was assigned one outlet. There were people waiting in Russia. If the need be, we take out our students from the Russian side. So, and he said that you have to stop the war. I have to take out my children. Putin agreed. The rebels agreed. Zelensky's forces agreed. And we took out all our children from Mariupol. This is Naya Bharat. So the coming of good governance, Indian economy rising. So there are plethora of reasons for the rise of this nationalist fervor that I was referring about. And I consider these are the factors because we are experiencing an administration which is living and practicing good governance. This is a huge change in ease of doing business. Now the focus is on ease of living. Sumitji was talking about laws. 1,450, this is the number, 1,450 archaic laws framed during the British period have just been removed. It was leading to nothing but litigation. A rule framed in 1826, applicable in 2022. 1,450 such laws have been scrapped out of Indian law system. And the biggest thing is that you have to understand the attitude is to take on an issue head on, not shy away. When he assumed power, there were so many contentious issues that the nation was facing. No government of the previous decades dealt with it. And it was imperative. Article 370 is just one of them. It has been there since 47. The whole thing was weird. I don't want to go into the details of it. The immunity factor, the two flags, the two constitutions. It was weird within a country. Everybody had it in heart. Nobody had the guts to bring it out of heart and talk about it. We did it. We integrated it into India. Totally. There was a very big Ram temple issue. Again, it is a pre-independence movement. Please know that. It is not confined to the demolition of Babri Masjid, etc. It's a pre-independence movement. I'm just trying to put it simply. And the Supreme Court verdict happened. It happened at this time. The construction of the temple has started. It should be open to public in maybe 23 end or 24 early. Now, triple talaq. We have not indulged, as far as administration is concerned, into vote bank politics for sure. I can tell you, I'll tell you more as we progress. Triple talaq, we don't get any votes, that the whole world knows very selectively. So we are accused of that. But the Muslim women, what they were going through, even Indonesia did not have it, Pakistan did not have this law, Saudi Arabia did not have this law, but India had it. A WhatsApp message from a guy working in Dubai, just 3 letters, talak, 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 and it's done with. A lady having children, 35-year-old, is asked to leave her in-law's house overnight. Where does she go with those children? Her family would not accept. See, if a well-to-do family is there, it's a different situation. But what about the poor family? The lady is on road with her children. And it was happening. This was the practice. That has come down by 82%. There was a whole leftist definition of poverty. गरीब कौन है इसकी एक परिभाषा थी, एक डेफिनेशन था तय. आप इसमें आए गरीब हो गए, आप इससे बाहर हो आप गरीब नहीं हो. भले आप बेटी का शादी नहीं करा सकते हो क्योंकि आप गरीब हो, आप पत्नी का इलाज नहीं करा सकते हो आप गरीब हो, लेकिन इस पैरामीटर में आप नहीं हो. So you're not Garib. The whole thing was rewritten again. It's being rewritten. If a poor is born because of this typical caste system that India has, in a Brahmanical family, in a Jat family, but he's a poor, but won't be called a poor for no fault of theirs, ये 5000 साल से चला आ रहा है, उसकी कोई दोष नहीं है, कोई गलती नहीं है कि एक पर्टिकुलर कुल में वो पैदा हुआ है, लेकिन वो गरीब नहीं कहलाएगा, वो उसकी बच्चे पढ़ नहीं पाएंगे. So 10% reservation was given for the economically weaker section by this government. This was the need of the hour. Lot of reservation politics has happened in 2-3 decades. And they got lost in that. This is an institution. You would agree that now even students from that particular section have started coming. So a change has come. One rank, one pension. Again a contentious issue. Not touched. Avoid. अपने फौजी बैठे हुए हैं धरना पे. Dealt, done with. One nation, one ration. We saw in Corona time what happened. The migrant laborers. The sensitivity of the administration. They are poor. Now a migrant labor of UP or Bihar working in Pune has a ration card. If he's there for work in Pune, he can pick up his allotted ration in Pune. If he goes back home to Faizabad, he can pick up his ration for that month in Faizabad. But he won't die. The government would not let him die out of hunger. So what I'm saying, the law reforms are happening, the labor codes have been passed. So a lot of things are changing. We have to accept that. See, everybody would agree, I use a term called jam. What did jam do to us? Jam has transformed our life. What is jam? Jam is Jandan. A stands for Aadhaar and M for mobile. It has just simplified life living. Everybody wants to buy anything that they have. Now you don't think of going to a market. You only think of going to a market when you have no option. Otherwise, if you don't have work, you go to, everybody would have an app of Amazon here or a Flipkart. Was it there 10 years back? People want to transfer money. Your children are studying somewhere else. Even for something they've lost, they have to buy something in the market. Mama, Paytm karo. You pay them $40 just for their burger or something, or $100. What's it possible? So there's a transformational change. The delivery services have changed. sizably in areas like healthcare, land registration, transport, taxation, urban planning. So India is more digitally connected than ever before. And you have to understand one thing, what has happened out of it. A very small thing. In one state, there were bogus ration cards, which were detected after the coming of these technologies, and that saved 6,000 crore in one state. So, the whole narrative of governance and politics has undergone a drastic change. And in both the streams, in politics also, we can't survive. I'm a member of parliament, but it's not that I have to enjoy as a member of parliament. No. The modern politics is different. I already have a set task assigned for the whole month of June and July. I have to, as a party boy, activist, my job is defined. We have started preparing for 24 elections. The difficult constituency where we have not fared well in last 3-4 elections, my job is, a constituency has been assigned. I have to go to 100 booths in these 2 months. Stay there, camp there, work there. I have to meet the beneficiaries of the various schemes and then say what is the problem. I have to analyze, write a report, work in the field. And then in July, the new parliament session will start. Then I will be coming to Delhi to attend the parliament. So it's now, the definition is very straight: reform, transform, and perform, be it the government or politics. So you'll see a lot of changes are happening, that premature retirements to IAS officers have been given. They are non-performers, retire. Lateral entry has started at joint secretary level. A lot of good MBA people have started coming in as joint secretaries. So a lot of change has come, and visibility in politics is also equally important. I don't want to say that why Congress lost the ground because of X and what. I would just like to quote something that Ayn Rand, a lot of people may have read a book, famous book called Atlas Shrugged. It was written in 1957. There's a line that says, when you see that in order to produce, you need to obtain permission from men who produce nothing. When you see that money is flowing to those who deal not in goods, but in favors, when you see men get richer by graft and by pull than by work, and your laws don't protect you against them, but protect them against you, when you see corruption being rewarded and honesty becoming a self-sacrifice, you may know that your society is doomed. That was the state of affairs for the last 2 decades, till 2014 came, and Prime Minister Modi came at the helm of affairs. So the Congress has to introspect all within this. See, every aspect, there are a lot that I can talk about, but I think I should close now. That, look at sports, the kind of medals that our athletes have started winning. There is no discrimination. Nikhat Zareen, I'll tell you why this is happening. The whole sports training process has changed. We may not realize, but I know how, for sure, very closely how it has changed. The scrutiny is proper at the grassroots level. If the athlete is a probable winner based on that scrutiny, give them the best training and the best equipment in the world. If Mr. X is the best trainer in South Africa, send this athlete to South Africa. Government of India will bear all the expenses. And therefore you have so many medals coming up. Whether it is Nikhat Zareen, whether it is Nikhil Chopra. And that is how you are seeing this evolution of the Naya India. Scale. Scale is very important. Everything mega is thought. Big. That was earlier never a concept that existed. But this government thinks you have startups, you have a unicorn culture, you have a Make in India. See, when we give slogans, everybody laughs. बेटी बचाओ, बेटी पढ़ाओ, अब ये शुरू किया इन्होंने. Effect क्या हुआ? Time has passed. Now you have to look at the effect, the impact. I'll tell you the effect. It has improved the sex ratio hugely. In definitely the defined states, nearby Delhi, amongst other states as well. The gross enrollment ratio, GER, of girls across all levels of education is now much higher than boys. All levels of education. At elementary levels, it is 94.32%. And that of boys is 89.28%. Secondary, 81.32 as compared to 78%. Higher secondary, girls have achieved a level of 59.7% against the boys who have a 57.54%. So there's a huge change. From independence for 70 years, India had made 6.37 lakh primary schools. In 8 years, 6.53 lakh primary schools have been made. So it's a question of will. India is changing, and our objective is very, very simple. Sensitivity is there. Vande Bharat was because of sensitivity. People in India had started crying when the COVID crisis erupted. And the biggest evacuation started in the world, undertaken in the world, was that of Vande Bharat. And withdrawal of the farm laws is another sensitivity approach that government has shown. Intention was not wrong. The perception in certain quarters deliberately evolved, which was confusing. I'll tell you a very small thing. Morgan Stanley is a very famous organization of a financial house world over. It did a research post-farm laws. If implemented, there'll be a steady growth of Indian economy and the agricultural sector especially for 3 decades at the rate of minimum 10%. But it was withdrawn. There's so much to talk about as far as this thing is topic that the institution has given. But concludingly, I would say that it was and it is time to mandatorily make India evolve as a nation where our pride lies no less than a proud US citizen feels about their country, or being an American wherever they may be. We have a long way to go, but the new narrative of the new politics is also headed in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful lecture and also for reposing your trust and faith in this institution. We have a strong responsibility on our shoulders, which we assure we are delivering and will deliver in future too. You have emphasized on the Vedas and the significance of the Vedas in the new education policy, and we are sure Bharat will be Param Vaibhavshali, as you said. There has been a sea change in India, in Indian polity, in Indian governance, and there's also been an attitudinal change, as you have rightly said. So let's take a pledge to make India free of corruption, communalism, terrorism, and caste. Let a new shining India rise where peace and prosperity would forever last. From farm to space, Prashashan Gaon ki or, there are so many facets of this government that you have rightly highlighted. Reform, transform, and perform. This mantra to be followed not just in government, but in all realms of life. एक नई सोच के साथ नजरिए को बदलना है, स्वस्थ मानसिकता संग स्वस्थ राष्ट्र बनाना है, एकजुट होकर देश को सबसे आगे बढ़ाना है, मिलकर हमें साथ साथ फिर से प्रबुद्ध, अवेकन्ड, आत्मनिर्भर भारत बनाना है, नए समय के साथ साथ नया भारत बनाना है. Swami Vivekananda ji was a personification of the eternal energy of the youth and the relentless and restless quest for truth. So our teachers here at VIPS kindle young minds and teach students with dedication, passion and fire. They nurture in them and instill in them the urge to reason and explore, the burning scientific desire. The inquisitive audience sitting here were attentively listening to the lecture today, and it is time now for them to actively participate in the interactive session with our guest. I would now invite Chairperson, Vivekananda School of Journalism and Mass Communication and Vivekananda School of Information Technology, Professor Siddharth Mishra, to moderate this question and answer session. Sir, please.
Thank you, Saloni. I have been here for 4 years, and I don't think that any speaker before you ever came so prepared for a lecture here. Thank you for having made that effort for this lecture. And I somewhat know that from where all this information and data came in. You spent quite some time in the library of the Rajya Sabha, from where you got all this information for today's lecture. And what was very pleasant for us was when you shared that when you went to the library of Rajya Sabha, the librarian there said that, I know the institute, my child studies there. So that was a great moment for pride for us, and you having heard this. Vivek, I have known you for a very long time. I have known you as a student of political science and at Delhi University, and I today see you as a practitioner of politics. And as a true practitioner of politics, when I say this because you really do not care to dress like a politician. I have not seen a politician come here dressed in jeans and loose shirts. So, that's a statement in itself. And when you spoke, I have not heard ever a politician speak here with that kind of a depth also. So that is probably new politics which you envisage. And I'm sure that we will have a lively session. We do not have much time at hand. In fact, he could take out this window for us. He was to only come back to Delhi during July, but he was here for a lecture to train legislature from northeastern states yesterday at Parliament. So he found some time for us. So yes, the House is open to questions. Please. Yes. Please identify yourself.
Yes. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, respected sir. My name is Shayan, and it has been an honor listening to you, and it quite was an insightful session. And my question being, from my own observation, that the major emphasis that we heard in today's address was upon the 8 years and how India as a country has progressed in the last 8 years. So do we think, or does the House think, that the concept of Naya Bharat and new politics is rigidly restricted to the 8 years of governance that we are having? And even if it is, do we think that there is a certain amount of credit which goes to the other side of the table as well, the people sitting at the other side of the table, namely the opposition, because government functions and democracy function hand in hand with the opposition as well. So do we think that there is a credit due on the opposition side as well? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question. And Siddhant. See, the emphasis on 8 years does make sense, because it's important to see the years that passed by prior to that 8 years that we are talking about. As I referred in my speech, that we lost critical 2 decades. Now, if I simplify it further and bring it down from a nation to states development theory, Maharashtra, Gujarat have traditionally been a developed state. But when the new economy came, the software, the services, all of this came, the newer states started developing big time. Andhra, came cities like Hyderabad, came Bangalore, came Pune, new centers, Raipur, all of that. But Bihar and UP lost it in those critical ways, Jharkhand for that matter. Although they are trying to catch up today, but the 20-year loss is a huge gap. So it might appear that this government is in a hurry to do reforms in every sector possible. Might appear. But you can't change the fact that that is the need also as far as speedy reform across spectrum, across sector is required. Now, opposition has a mindset because new things are happening. And it is in sync with the mind and the want of the people. I'll give you a very small example. I referred 15 aims have come up in 8 years. In all, there are 22 aims. 7 came prior to this 15. I might sound like an activist, but these are facts, what to do. Out of 7, 6 came in Atal Bihari Vajpayee's regime. So what are you left with? 1, Delhi aims. Yes, it is an iconic structure, iconic institution, we all believe that. But 70 साल में एक एम्स बना. So there is a need, yes. So what happened? Opposition, you have to weigh the resistance. We are, as members of various standing committees of the parliament, all party members are there. And we deliberate on a huge lot of issues as far as law is concerned, rules are concerned. All members, whether it's a communist member of parliament or any party, Shiv Sena, anybody. And we all arrive at our suggestions and recommendations, which is incorporated in the standing committee report. And then that is sent to the ministry and the law is framed. This labor reform law, I'm a member of the Labour Standing Committee, which has 3 wings. Textile is also there, skill development is also there. The labour reforms that took place, which has been passed by the Parliament, our Standing Committee had given 238 recommendations. All 238 recommendations have been incorporated into the bill. And the Standing Committee does not comprise of members of my party only. In fact, the chairman itself is from Orissa Biju Janata Dal. And there are 3 communist trade union leaders, Mr. Shanmugam, Mr. Karim. They are very famous trade unionists. They are part of the standing committee. But government introduced this bill after incorporating 238 changes. So when it comes to the public arena, which is the platform like parliament or any place, well, everybody has its own constituency to address. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
You know, adding to that, you know, opposition support cooperation in private, which is in the parliamentary committees, and opposition in public. But there are 2 instances in Indian history, recent Indian history, where the opposition actually collaborated with the government and supported the government. One was during a UN conference in 1990s when Mr. P.V. Narasimha was the Prime Minister, an Indian delegation went there, which was led by Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who was leader of opposition. That the government could trust the leader of opposition, and the leader of opposition accepted to propagate the government line at UN. So do we have the opposition today ready to, you know, give concurrence to the government line? It's a very big question. Because if you see today there is an international crisis regarding, somebody's loudspeak. And the whole opposition, you know, today it's not just we as a country are facing isolation, and in that situation, opposition, instead of standing with the government, decides to oppose the government. So the point is that at larger platforms, is the opposition ready to walk hand in hand with the government? One was this foreign affairs, I said, where Vajpayee led the government delegation, headed the government delegation as leader of opposition. And the second was Manmohan Singh's government's biggest, most successful project, Manrega, was penned by a committee which was headed by Mr. Kalyan Singh, who was a BJP leader. So is the opposition today ready to collaborate with this? So in democracy, if you are not ready to opposition, if you are not there to collaborate with the government, if you are not there to support the government, there will be problems for you. There will be a question of credibility for you. Yeah, any other question, please? Yeah. There, yes.
Hello, sir. I'm Punyanjali Bhardwaj from second semester. I'd like to ask you the question that you just stated, that all the radical changes by the government that are coming in the nation today are in sync with the minds and wants of the people or the population of the country. Yet, we see a lot of disturbance and turmoil going all over the nation. What would you like to comment about that?
Disturbance going on?
In the nation, about a lot of radical changes that have been brought, which you state are in sync with the needs and wants of the people of the nation.
Can you be a little more specific?
Sir, like the Kashmir issue, as well as all the religious sentiments that are being talked about across the nation and not in just one place. And the issues and the statements are being sensitive.
All right. See, Kashmir issue is an issue of two schools of thought. And everybody knows, basically understands, and need not be a student of political science, what are those two schools of thought. If we look at television every day in the evening, we would all know very well. What I'm trying to say is that Kashmir is going through a positive transformation. From a dark state likely to evolve as a bright state. So any transformation has a journey. Transformation doesn't have an immediate definition of the next step. It has a journey. And the journey and the related churning has to go through, and these criticisms will come. So you look at the other thing also. When India developed its vaccine, nobody said the vaccine has come. Everybody was saying, how would you? The delivery mechanism was questioned by people all over India. कैसे डालोगे, ये है, वो है, हमें नहीं चाहिए, इंडिया में यहाँ वैक्सीन आएगा नहीं. People wanted to go and import. They were allowed also. Delhi government was allowed, Maharashtra was allowed. Not a single vial came to them after their global tender was opened. No one participated. And today 190 crore plus people of India have been vaccinated. And we have successfully lived various waves. But the criticism was there about our vaccine, everything. We were questioned in the Ladakh standoff also. There were people who were talking pro-China. We all heard about it. Imagine how, as rightly Siddharthji said, Mr. Vajpayee could have been trusted by Narasimha Rao as the Prime Minister of India that he would do justice by leading the delegation at a UN platform. And the speech was historic, defending India and its policies. And we have also seen last week lectures delivered in Cambridge. So the question is can we trust our opposition that way today also? So these things, when a nation changes, you have resistance that comes from within. Jan Dhan account was also mocked. What is the relevance of Jan Dhan account? It is not just that poor got emboldened. Indian banking system was collapsing. When he assumed power, there was 14.5 lakh crore rupee out of the banking sector was wiped out. New laws were framed. Then we were able to retrieve just 4.5-5 lakh crores. Rest we couldn't. Such was the system prevailing then. And then the merger of the weak bank with the stronger bank started. Allahabad Bank merged into Indian Bank. The entity became big, they absorbed it. And 45 crore new bank accounts and government's thousands and lakhs of crores transferred into those 45 new accounts saved bank. Resistance was there also. Jandan account, mockery. It does happen. It's a part of the process.
Adding on to the vaccine, the hospital where I took my vaccinations, luckily I took the Indian vaccines, so I could take the third vaccine also. A friend of mine depended on the Sputnik vaccine, and the Sputnik has vanished into the space. It's not coming. And the person cannot take the third vaccine now unless and until this, the mixture of vaccine is allowed. So, somewhere, the credibility of the vaccine has got established in the mind of the consumers also. The biggest credibility has to be in the mind of consumers. Yeah. Somebody wanted to ask a question. Yes.
Sir, I'm Dr. Praveen Singh from VSGMC. Sir, my question is that you cited that there has been a change in the working style of member of parliament, that you have next 2 months booked altogether. So are there any key result areas which party has decided for all these parliamentarians also? Any such kind of changes which has come up?
I mean, why have we been able to form governments in 18 states? This is the second time that people of India have voted for Modi with a greater thumping majority. Why? He is a leader here who leads the whole thing. We are the soldiers. And if a soldier has to fight a war properly, the general's guidelines have to be proper. And it has to be monitored. For example, the example that you are talking about, that yes, around 160 plus constituencies, all MPs have started working, the difficult ones. I'm a Rajya Sabha member, I don't have a constituency. My whole state is my constituency, but where we did not contest, I've been given a particular constituency. Now all data has come there to work on data and then zero down those 100 booths, which means so many villages. I have to make a member of 30-member team comprising of an IT guy, women's representation, and then divide that whole team out of that 100 booth. If you take 1,000 as one population, so one team has to, every individual has to touch, roughly we've calculated around 3,000 people. We have to do it. I go back from Delhi on 11th after attending my last meeting, and from 12th I'm where my work is assigned. Then, not only that, we have a mechanism. We have to download an app, and every activity has to be loaded in the field. This is new politics. It's called Saral. You might end up reading it somewhere. So this is, politics has definitely undergone a change. So very rightly in our internal meetings it is said that when Mr. Modi came in 2014, it was only Mr. Modi on the social media. In 2022, it is, everyone is there, even we are competing with them.
And to add to that, for the students of mass communication and journalism, today BJP is one of the biggest job givers also for the people looking for a career in social media, in content development, data sciences, and in fact there was a team here from Jammu and Kashmir BJP unit, and which I believe has recruited one of our students. So that is the kind of political machinery which has been created in this country, which I really do not recall having been created any time before this. Maybe Gandhi created that kind of a machinery when he led the mass national movement, and in his own way, in his own time, with his own mechanisms he did. So we can, I think, is there anybody else? Yeah, we'll have, no, the hands are started rising now. There are 4 hands standing. Let me register. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I will ask the one in the uniform. Yeah.
Sir, I want to ask Mr. Vivek sir that about your initial starting you have talked about the Vedas, Vihara, and Vedic maths. Sir, if Vedic maths is so powerful that we can do the calculation in 6 to 7 steps, why these methods are not taught to us in schools life and etc.?
That is why we brought about this new education policy. There was, the whole education policy was just not revisited for 35 years almost.
Sir, but in education policy, I think there is a loophole type where we have not taught about skills, how to gain that.
No.
Sir, no, sir.
So you have to go through, let the first batch come up. Let the first batch come up. See, एक आपको छोटी सी बात बता देता हूँ. एक बड़ी पुरानी एक सिनेमा थी मुगले आजम, और जब पहले बार आया तो एक फ्राइडे से दूसरे फ्राइडे में उतर गया. उसका जब रीलॉन्च हुआ तो वो लेजेंडरी फिल्म्स में से हो गया. मेरा तो ये कह रहा है कि न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में पहले जब एक वाइस चांसलर थे प्रोफेसर दिनेश सिंह, उन्होंने जब इंट्रोड्यूस किया था FYUP करके, तो हंगामा हो गया था. लगभग फोटोकॉपी है न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी, पूरी दुनिया स्वीकार ली है. So let things unfold. I think it was much needed.
You have had your turn. You have had your turn. You have asked a question. ठीक है. Let the others also have a chance. Yes. Yeah. You. No. You will come next. Yeah.
First of all, good afternoon, sir. I'm Sharanya. You briefly talked about reservation and how the reservation for EWS are increasing. But currently there is also a debate about the other kinds of reservation and about decreasing them. So is that still a discussion? And if it is not, then why? Like, why are those reservations still valid?
Well, we haven't heard of these discussions, at least on our platforms so far. I didn't talk about reservations. I talked about what was it was correlative with poverty that existed in a particular kind of segment of the society, which was not being called poor by way of a particular definition. And that was the need of the hour, and therefore a 10% provision was made. So that is what I was correlating that whole thing with this.
Sir, my name is Kovamjeet Singh. I'm from the BLLB batch. And am I allowed to have 2 questions, or should I just pick one? Okay, sir. So, sir, my personal thing is, you often talk about BJP in general. It often talks about the 70 lost years post-partition. So, Engineer, sir, I'd like to ask, do you think it's an apt comparison to compare the relative decade of peace we've had now to 70 years of sheer utter chaos around the world? Is it a truly fair comparison to compare the circumstances of development of both scenarios?
No, I don't think that BJP talks about 70 years of total loss. If we had talked about that, we wouldn't have had a all PM's museum near India Gate, which has come up, first of all. Secondly, I don't think you connected with the fact that when I referred about the critical 2 decades, see, the critical 2 decades has changed the world economy everywhere. And that is where we lost, where we could have seen. India can't progress if a lot of states don't progress. It's not, you can't, what is the point of framing a policy? You hail from Punjab. The electricity bill that the Punjab State Electricity Board owes to various institutions has grown over years, and now no government, till it writes it off, it is almost like Air India. You can't do anything.
it has reached such a stage. We had to sell Air India. Why? Air India, any airlines, needs a maximum of 228 personnel over one aircraft. At its peak, Air India had between 1,600 to 2,200 employees on one aircraft. Is it sustainable? What kind of a policy is that? And imagine that accrual. कोई भी सरकार कितना सस्टेन करेगी? तो आप बेचोगे तो कहीं बेच दिया, बेच दिया, बेच दिया, बेच दिया, बेच दिया. And you won't believe it. I have come day before yesterday taking an Air India flight. The quality has changed. Air India time schedule has become real good since Tatas have taken over. सफाई सुधर गई है, खाना खुना मिल रहा है. वो भी बंद हो गया था बीच में, कोरोना में जब बंद कर दिया था तो बड़े खुश थे एयर इंडिया वाले कि हमें देना ही नहीं खाना. वो क्यों? जो उनके केटरर्स थे आज तक उनका बिल पेमेंट नहीं हुआ. अब टाटास हैव टू एड्रेस दैट. So we can't say that we blame the whole 70 years. So, but that critical 2 decades, yes, that is the time. If the real direction was given, good governance in real sense had started, we would have been a different country today.
That would be the last question.
Namaskar sir, I am Himanshi Yadav and my question is more like a follow-up to the question where you talked about the journey of a nation. Sir, you were talking about the Kashmir issue, you were talking about Article 370. Is it inevitable in the journey of a nation for so many people to suffer? Like right now, there are Kashmiri Pandits and they are again in terror, they are again fleeing. What would your comment be on that? I do have another question, only if you are
No,
not.
we are not permitting another question.
Sure,
We are
sir.
sort of run out of time.
See, Kashmir issue is a very different issue. And understanding of a Kashmir issue is a difficult subject. You can't look at it simply what you read in a morning newspaper, The Times of India, 2 Kashmiri Pandits killed. If on one movie there has been so much of hue and cry, but 2 Kashmiri Pandits killed, the entire opposition is saying that whole policy has failed, Falana has failed, Falana. But nobody wants to talk about Kashmir files. But that's also a reality that has happened. Mass murders used to take place. But people don't talk about it today. They don't want to. But they do want to talk about the 2 things that's happened. They don't want to say that 85 lakh tourists have already visited in 4 months Jammu and Kashmir. That the economy is reviving. But yes, there are elements. It's a difficult thing. It's a border state. Northeast was equally bad for many years and decades. But it's a peaceful zone because of the various accords that has been signed by the tribes there. Now 66% of Northeast is out of AFSPA, if you know it's a law, that is Armed Forces presence, is out of 66% of the territory of entire Northeast. So it has been addressed. Kashmir issue has been addressed. Imagine a situation if I say, I give you a figure of fact that 20,000 terrorists have been eliminated. Imagine a situation they were all there. What would have been Kashmir like? Would anybody have talked about it? They were all there prior. We used to have blasts in Sarojini Nagar market. We've had it in Delhi. So, all of that, because of the policies against terrorism, zero tolerance, India has been relatively safe in 7-8 years. Bombay had witnessed so many blasts, Delhi had witnessed so many blasts. So Kashmir is being dealt with a firm hand. We cannot leave Kashmir, that is absolutely clear. And the integration process, I have been to Kashmir in the last 6 months twice for meetings, stayed there. People people are happy because economy is reviving. We all are going. Amarnath Yatra was stopped. It's starting. The enrollment has been huge. और कश्मीर में दुखद है घटना, लेकिन अगर क्राइम रेट देखिएगा तो मेरे स्टेट में तो रोज इससे ज़्यादा मर्डर होता है. Thank you.
Just to add to that, for last 20 years, the Pandits were not being killed in Kashmir, and why are they being killed today? If you have to look deeper, because there is a rehabilitation policy for the government to bring the Pandits back to the valley, which the elements inimical to their going back to the valley is being resisted, and that kind of environment is trying to be created. So we as students of mass communication and journalism also have to look beyond the news and see why is it happening this way. I'm so grateful to you, Vivek, for having taken all the questions so patiently and having answered all the queries. And the politicians are not really known to take and answer questions which are not in line with their thoughts and their ideology and their policy. So once again, thank you so much for having found time, having come here, spoken, and having answered the questions of the students. Over to you.
So true, sir. The force, motivation and warmth that Shri Thakur has induced in our students has perhaps further enthused their spirits, and with a volley of questions that have barged in, this session by Shri Vivek Thakur has indeed invigorated all of us. So the need of bhagedari, hissedari, commitment to common cause, we are sure सम्मिलित, संगठित, बुलंद आवाज होगी आज के नवयुवक और नवयुवतियों की नए भारत के निर्माण में. So बुलंद भारत के बुलंद इरादों के साथ, it is time now to draw the curtains of this lecture today. I now invite Assistant Dean of VRC, Dr. Baninder Rahi, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Saloni ma'am. It is indeed a privilege to propose vote of thanks to such a galaxy of intellectuals present on and off the dais. We know that world politics is changing, so the power blocks. India being in a position to invigorate global trade and politics, and in this context, the topic for today's public lecture, Naya Bharat, New Politics, was of topical importance. I am confident that the insights shared by our esteemed speaker would highly be beneficial in understanding the paradigm shift in the Indian political landscape, including attitudinal change and change in the work culture. Sir, you very well highlighted the importance of Vedas and how our new education policy is in sync with our traditional value system. And thank you, students, for adding value to the lecture with your organic questions. I, on behalf of the Institute, pass my warm thanks to our esteemed speaker, Shri Vivek Thakur, Member Parliament Rajya Sabha, Chairman VIPS Dr. S.C. Wirtz, Vice Chair, Shri Sunit Wirtz, members of VIPS management, all the chairperson and deans of various department, and also Professor Emeritus, Professor Subba Rao, and my dear faculty members and beloved students. I acknowledge everyone present in the auditorium for their significant participation in today's public lecture. Organizing such lectures are impossible without efficient teamwork and logistic support. And therefore, sincere thanks are due to the State Department, IT Department, Accounts Department. Thanks are also due to the VSGMC Department, Dean, and VSGMC Video Studio for documenting the event. Professor Siddharth Mishra, Chairperson VSGMC, VSIT, VRC, for holding crisp and value meetings that always ended with him offering us tea or coffee. We also acknowledge the presence of NCC cadets of VIPS. A sincere thanks to VRC team and social media executive, Mr. Abhidesh Jha, for their contribution. Among many steps, this step will also be considered or is towards proving Swamiji's ideology true. I once again sincerely thank dignitaries on the dais for their valuable time. Thank you, everyone.